Yo, Snoop Dogg and D.I.
Hello and welcome to Villanova Tip Time. I'm your host, Chris Notaro, on a big Catter Day in late February for one with some high stakes as Villanova heads to Connecticut on campus at Gamble Pavilion to take on the number one team in the country at their place. We'll talk about Nova's performance this week against Butler. It is the last week of February, so of course we'll talk about the bubble. We'll reintroduce this UConn team, and we'll get you on your way for tip-off at the top of the hour on Fox proper. It's been a big Fox Saturday today with the Villanova women's team on Fox proper earlier today against Creighton. Now having the men's team on in the evening, so it's a Villanova takeover on national TV. And boy, is it a big one for the men's team tonight as they take on the number one team in the country with a chance to solidify their at-large resume and all but guarantee themselves a spot in the big dance, regardless of what happens at Madison Square Garden in a couple of weeks, even though we're looking forward to that baby as well. Of course, we're here at Villanova Tip Time, presented by Homefield Apparel as part of the Nova Insider Network. Promo code Nova Insider. Stock up on those March Madness goodies. You got enough time to get that stuff here before we're getting into the thick of the season where you're going to be going to all the game watches, hopefully some of the games as well. And go play that new trivia game that Nova Insider put out. Willie from the Full 40 really led the charge on that. Winner of that trivia game is going to win that sweet Homefield Apparel Nova bomber jacket that you've seen plenty around courtside. So go check that out. And before we get into the game at hand tonight, we want to talk a little bit about what we saw from the Cats this week. Really fun, good week. We want to talk news and notes from the bubble. So let's start with that Nova Butler game earlier in the week. Another really strong defensive performance from the Cats. Would have been a much more heralded defensive performance if Butler hadn't gone just bonkers from three in the first half. Now, while you could maybe make the same argument about Nova kind of staying hot because the two teams were really just trading blows for the most of the first half, I really liked how Nova was getting itself set and finding its shots in that first half and hitting them versus Butler, who was just kind of heaving up those prayers. Villanova, for the most part, playing good D, and they're just hitting some crazy ones, especially Posh Alexander. And eventually, Butler regressed to the mean, and Nova was good to go and was able to prevail in this one. Your three stars were Eric Dixon, who has just continued to be everything to this Villanova basketball team. I tweeted about this at some point within the last week or so. Through all the ups and downs of the last 2 years, the abrupt retirement of Coach Wright, the early years of Coach Neptune sort of finding his way, leading this staff and leading this program, it has certainly had its ups and downs. But one constant has been Eric Dixon as one of the best players in the conference. And on a team that maybe performed at a slightly higher level, maybe not as much of a bubble team, if Nova could have sort of been at the closer to the high end of expectations on where they'd be at this point in the season. I think there's a plenty of those universes where Eric Dixon's in the best players in the country conversation. Instead, I think part of any part of Nova's struggles, you've seen a lot of double teams and really just neutralizing Eric Dixon as the rest of the Villanova offense has struggled to find its way. But there's definitely something clicking about this team more recently. And of course, he's your first star of the game. I think he put up 22 points and had a pretty nice box score overall. Just continues to be that player. And you just hope that it doesn't get lost that Eric Dixon, who while he may have 1 year of eligibility left, very unclear whether he's going to test the pro waters or otherwise, and not a for granted that he comes back for that last year. And so you just want to appreciate him down this stretch in these meaningful games and his skill and his ability. And the reason that we're even here is pretty much because of him. Our second star from the game is going to be Brendan Hawson. He is the hot hand. It seems like they've been riding him. They've been working to find him. It seems like he has the freaking green light, which you love to see. And it's paid off for now, I think, at least 3 or 4 games in a row. There's a little bit of a debate out there about whether he's too trigger happy and some of them are bad shots. But I think he's almost earned that right at this point to take some of those maybe questionable looks because he's hitting them sometimes. So I love the fact that we've got a guy that can launch from anywhere on the floor, showed up big against Butler earlier in the week, gonna need him to show up big again tonight. And then I want to also throw, when I do 3 stars for the game, I want to call Justin Moore out for the third one, because it's been a little quiet around him. I think, there's been a lot of chatter about not looking like he doesn't really have his legs under him. This knee injury definitely hampering him from being kind of all the way back. But this past game against Butler was sort of the first time you saw a highly efficient performance from Justin Moore, getting a bunch of shots up. I think he ended up with 13 points. And if he's going to be contributing in that like 13 to 15 point level with a high efficiency clip to it, you would love to see that from Justin Moore, with the sort of inside outside that's opened up by having Eric Dixon down low and Brendan Hawson on the same side. What a cool threat that is for the Cats, which we've seen historically over the last decade or two of having elite shooters and good inside man at times. The combo of Eric Dixon and Brendan Hawson is definitely one that jumps off the page as special, and we hopefully we're going to get to enjoy it here for another month or so. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's transition the conversation to news and notes from the bubble. The metrics continue to say Nova's in. The bracketologists continue to say no, not yet. I think Villanova is definitely hampered by the look of just the win-loss at 15-11. If they really, really hurts some of the woulda, coulda, shouldas, there are at least 5 or 6 games from this season that you could reasonably argue should have been wins for Villanova. Interesting corollary I was talking about with a friend of the program, Joe from Boston, the other day. At times, this team has sort of infuriatingly struggled with layups, and that's also kind of true on their schedule with some of these games that they dropped that they should have had. And even having like 1 or 2 of them back probably spins the win-loss to not be as much of a blocker in people's mind, and the rest of the resume speaks for itself, and you're absolutely in as an automatic qualifier. So they just need to do the work to make up for that. Another sort of comment from the bubble, the fact that if you look, so first, let's take a step back. When people talk bracketology, the most common that you see is people referencing ESPN or Joe Lunardi. And I think it's been pretty objectively proven that the most popular bracketologists are probably not actually the best at it. There was something cool that was floating around last year and probably still exists. I'm forgetting its name, where they literally rank the top 100 most efficient bracketologists. And none of the guys that if you only know the handful of top guys, the ESPN guys and whatnot, none of those guys are really going to be in the top 25 bracketologists. So in any case, so it's crazy when people are letting their emotions live and die by what ESPN and Joe Lunardi says. Respect to him because he sort of created the category. So no disrespect, but also not living and dying because he's not necessarily the closest to the real outcome from the committee. One thing that has been absolutely grinding my gears is rating the Mountain West over the Big East in terms of number of bids. You're seeing plenty of bracketologists, including ESPN's, say that the Mountain West is right now going to get 6 bids and the Big East is going to get 5. And that is what we like to call losing the plot. I'm not trying to put the Mountain West down. They've played some really fun basketball, and they do have 6 teams at the top of that league that are going to make for a very compelling conference tournament. But the Big East, they are not. The level of competition is significantly different between these two. So it's just another example of, I would say, maybe the Big East not getting the love that it should. Villanova as one of the very many Big East teams on the bubble, probably being a little underrated. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because you have a chance to take care of business down the stretch here tonight and beyond. Tonight is essentially an automatic qualifier for Villanova, but let's just say it goes the way of the metrics and the prediction and the bettors, and this one goes to the home side. If you're Villanova, you've got home against Georgetown after this. You've got at Providence. You've got at Seton Hall, who are both teams firmly on the bubble right around you. And then you've got your last game of the year home against Creighton, who you've already beat. So you have the opportunity to take care of business regardless of what happens tonight. If you want to look ahead to Big East tournament seeding, there's a good sort of daily Excel-based chart that's floating around day by day that shows the percentage likelihoods of each team in the conference and where they're going to end up in the standings and the seedings for the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden. Villanova is going to have seeds 4 through 8 all likely in play. So a very wide range of outcomes there. with most of their probability concentrated to seeds 5, 6, and 7. As you all, if you need a little refresher on the tournament bracket for the Big East, which has 11 teams, 4 or 5 means you get the day off on Wednesday because you're going to play each other in the second, the first or the early session, second game of the early session on Thursday. So 4 or 5 seed means you get the day off Wednesday. If you're 6 or worse seeds, you're going to be playing on Wednesday. You need to avoid that 8-9 game like the plague. Unless you really want to try to avenge those St. John's Demons of going 0-2 to this limping St. John's team, you really want to avoid that game because seed 6 or 7 is going to grant you an extra win on your season. You're going to get either DePaul or Georgetown. Of course, it's foolish to just completely chalk that up as a win. Of course, stranger things have happened. But let's just say that's a win. And maybe that win doesn't mean a ton for the metrics. Except to a team that's resume is already there, but maybe the win-loss column looks a little funny. So that 6 or 7 line isn't the worst outcome for Villanova for them to get an extra W in the W column. But of course, that 4 or 5 is a very respectable showing, especially if you can nab that 4. I think if you told anybody at the beginning of the season that we would end up in 4th place, I don't think you'd be thrilled about it, but you also wouldn't be like catastrophically mad about it either. So, with a couple of minutes left, let's talk about this UConn team, which Danny Hurley has coached this defending champion UConn Huskies to 24-3 and the number 1 ranking in college basketball, which they've been sort of trading with Purdue as of late. Of course, instead of softening up the Huskies a little bit for us, Creighton absolutely dump trucked UConn earlier this week in Omaha. So Hurley is going to have his boys ready to roar as they welcome in the Godfather program of the new Big East. Yes, I know, UConn's the defending champion, but Villanova is the class of the new Big East. So there's still a big game on everybody's calendar, even if it's clear who the favorite is in this one. And Villanova is going to come in really hungry for this big win to solidify their bubble resume. I absolutely love the TJ Bamba soundbite from earlier this week, where he said, yep, they're coming in from a loss. They're going to be hungry, but guess what? We're hungry too. I love what we're seeing from the guys sort of gelling in games of late. And I think this is a big one to see that, to really be able to build that momentum and kind of rise to the level of something that was accused openly of being platitudes, which is playing the best basketball at the end of the season. You're kind of seeing Nova trend that direction. And I don't want to say that is completely stopped with a loss here, but you want to at least show up. You want to give the champs a good fight. And again, there's plenty at stake for Nova to just go out and take care of business tonight. So if you're looking at, what to watch for from this UConn team, Cam Spencer, Alex Carabam, Tristan Newton, all averaging 15 points a game and capable of being the hot hand at any given moment. Donovan Clingan is one of the best centers in college basketball when he's fully healthy. While he's been back from his injury for almost a full month, he is still maxing out around 25 minutes per game. And Stephen Castle is one of the best impact freshmen in the country. So when we think about this matchup tonight, first thing that jumps out to me is, of course, you've got UConn probably coming in, not overlooking this game because they just came off what they would consider to be a pretty embarrassing loss in Omaha. But Nova's going to be less than full strength tonight with Tyler Burton and Lance Ware grinding through non-COVID illnesses. That's not great for a game that was set to be a physical battle where where rebounding, defense and rebounding are both important per Coach Neptune, of course. But I think particularly the ability to hold up on the boards and both Tyler Burton and Lance Ware's supreme contribution to that being held back. Nova's got some stuff, working against them tonight, but that's no excuse. Hakeem Hart will join the starting rotation in Burton's place, and we love what we've seen from him at times this year. So you're ready for a veteran player like that to step up and answer the call. Burton and Ware are in uniform, and we're warming up, but it's unclear how much we're going to get out of them tonight. So the rotations are going to be interesting. So let's bring it down to what are the keys to tonight's game. Number 1, we are hungry too. Hold the damn line. There's a lot working against you. You will have a few more chances to extend your year, but none bigger than tonight. So hold the line. Be hungry. Get hungry. Can Justin Moore continue to be the real Justin Moore, even at the level we saw earlier this week, would go a very long way for this Cats team. Brendan Hawson, to stay hot. You have to figure that the Huskies defense isn't going to give him an inch is Villanova going to be able to run plays to get him open, considering with maybe some of the illness holding the roster mixing back, you figure that Brendan Hawson's going to have to be either a really powerful part of the strategy or a really powerful decoy for something else. And then you need Eric Dixon to be the best big in the conference. It's such an unfair thing to put on him, a call that he's answered so many times for this Villanova team, but the Bright's not bigger than a night like tonight in Gamble. I think they have a whiteout going on. They retired Rip Hamilton's jersey. I just saw that it's like $2 beers there tonight. I hope that's not true, but either way, this environment is going to be rocking. And Eric Dixon has showed up in those situations way more often than he hasn't. So I'm excited to see the big cat try to do it again tonight. But that's going to bring us right down to tip. We've got about a minute until the top of the hour over on Fox. We're going to be off for both games next week. No tip time for either game next week, unfortunately. But I'll be back for the Seton Hall game on March 6th. Let's have a Catterday, grab your favorite beverage, and get ready to march Nova. Ladies and gentlemen, it's tip time.